Why would I do a CD called Confessions of a Muslim Comedian? And that was the idea of bringing entertainment to Muslims, for Muslims, about Muslims, but for everybody. I got Dean in my life. Who is Dean? But you're really right there. You know how Muslims get you all hyped up? You're like, he said, brother, you ready to be Muslim? I said, yeah. He said, you know what that means? I said, tell me, brother. He said, you ready to give up the swine? I said, yes, sir. I'm giving up the swine. He said, are you ready to give up the alcohol? I said, yes, sir. I'm ready to give up the alcohol. He said, you ready to give up the women? I said, yes, sir. I'm ready to give up the alcohol. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Miles, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. You're in the right place. Hope you're having an amazing Sunday. I hope you had a great Saturday. You know, we want to get all this greatness in before we get into Monday. You know, people don't like Mondays, but you know what? It's there for a reason. It's there to remind us, you know what? You should take care of your business on Saturday and Sunday, but you're messing around. Now, you go on a Monday, you got to wait a whole nother week. That's not what I was trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, you know what? Take every day as important. Make the best out of whatever it is that's going on in your world and in your environment around you, because nothing's given. Nothing is given. And I want to go ahead and introduce, or not introduce, but I want to welcome anybody that's coming to the show for the first time. I appreciate you. You know, Sundays are always an interesting day. Sometimes when I have to come up with a topic for Sunday, there's two things that come across my mind. You know, people are doing things on Sunday. They're trying to get their lives straight before they have to go through the rest of the week. Some of them are tired. You're prepping, and I understand that. You know, I'm no different. And that has a lot to do with sometimes what I put up for a subject matter. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know if people are going to like the subject matter, but I start worrying about what people like. And sometimes you have to speak from your heart, speak from your spirit. That's number one. So anyone who's coming on for the first time, we appreciate you. Anybody that's thought about coming on for the first time, we appreciate you as well. And I'm going to tell you why I said that. You know, so much of life is about intent. So much about life is about intent. When I say so much of life is about being intent, it means that we have decisions. There's a quote a guy said to me. He said, time is money, but intention is life. So time is money, but intention is life. You know, because money will go, but you know, intentions follow you your entire life. And I was like, this is a very profound statement. And this came from uh, an OG who was incarcerated in Northern California doing a lot of years. Let's just say that. And when he told me that, I was like, you know what? What he's saying to me, potential is like, there's a space in life whereby we can give away the blessings, we can give away the things that are valuable, our time, our core values, to things that have no value, or we can shade ourselves from those things and begin to really look. I mean, I have a deep, profound, robust look at the things that are important to us. He was saying he wished he had done that early in his life before he was incarcerated. And I said, you know what? That's an amazing thought process because a lot of us, we are in the world, we're doing what we want to. We have families, husbands, wives, jobs, but he still said, and I believe that intention is life, but we have to stop at some point in time and reevaluate what's important, what's real, what's accessible, and being able to move that agenda forward. So I'm digressing a little bit. So shout out to anybody that's coming for the show on the first time. Simple rules. You are part of the family. It's number one. Number two is, if you don't mind, click the subscription box, the notification box, the like box. This is also the people who watch the shout out show after we go off. We're going live. I have to remember that some people check the show out later. If you enjoy the show, click do that for us. Appreciate it. Trying to grow a little project here. Now, for everybody that's in the spot, all my regular people, I have to give my stars in the bill. I got to give them a shout out. All right. First and foremost, I'm going to holler out Sister Ree. Sister Ree is the shout out show Cuisinar, the chef, if you will, the official cook, the dietitian, the craft services. Just basically a good sister, big heart, always trying to make sure your brother has some food. I appreciate you. Little sister, I appreciate you. And we have Sister Sultana, who tunes into the show. God bless her. Foot Soldier, Sister Sultana has done an amazing job with the Shout Out Show, helped me to grow the show. Her advice has been indispensable. When I say it's indispensable, it means that people bring you ideas that you may not have thought of, but it's fun that people bring you ideas that refine your ideas. And she's done a great job of helping me refine my ideas. So some of the subject matter I may have gone over a while ago, but life evolves subject matter. Life really, really evolves subject matter. And as we get towards the end of the year, I thought, because we started the beginning of the week talking about politics. And one of the big politic things I'm going to talk about momentarily, let me introduce everybody, is the issue of race. Not say race in America, but race is a very, very what's the word? Very diverse type of problem that we face, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And this is Brother Altaf Rashid representing. He's representing the 416, representing the 416 in Toronto, Canada. Man, we appreciate you as always, brother. A peace and blessings to you and your family. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I can always use a blessing. And we have Sister Ika coming all the way from Indonesia. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's good vibes in the building. I don't know if you ever have a show where everybody comes on and just gives you salams and say hello and how are you and things like that, and they converse. It's actually a pretty unique thing. So what I would like to do is I want to get to this topic. Race in America is one level of the conversation. Race in our lives is the other part of the conversation. Let me say something. There's race in America, and then there's race in our lives. It's two different things. And I thought about this because I like to go on the archive sometimes. And I found an old video. You've probably seen it before. Well, Malcolm X is talking about race in America. Malcolm X, Malcolm Little, Detroit Red, whoever you want to talk about. He was talking about race in America, and it had such a tonality to it that I really, really, it struck a chord with me. Number one, because it was quite a long time ago. It's in black and white. But two, he's addressing police brutality. I told you guys how long police brutality has been around in terms of a Muslim consciousness, if you will. Just a Muslim consciousness. If you ever read Honorable Elijah Muhammad's Eat to Live, he talks about police brutality in a cookbook, in essentially a halal diet cookbook. He talks about it. So it permeates life. Like I said, there's race in America and there's race in our lives. If you allow me, I'm going to bring up the clip. Just want you to watch it and catch some of the nuances of what Malcolm X is saying, because it's a brilliant dialogue. Okay. I want to give credit to people who are able to take something, conceptualize it, and present it in a very concise manner. He does that. And I think sometimes as I watched it, I realized I've seen this clip a bunch of times, but I missed some things. And what I missed, I'm going to talk about today about race in America because, may Allah be pleased with him, Brother X is no longer with us. But the thoughts that he puts out in his speech are breadcrumbs, if you will, for how not for how to follow back for something, but how to go forward. Usually, when you leave breadcrumbs, you want somebody to follow it. In his speech, he leaves breadcrumbs moving forward. And in some regards, we have to backtrack. We have to understand what it is. So let me play this real quickly. I'm going to bring it up. It's not long. It's maybe like 2 minutes. But I want you to catch some of the nuance in what this guy's saying, because this is not George Floyd. This is not 2020. This is, in fact, the background behind this was that Muslims were killed in Muhammad's mosque out in LA. Police ran in there and they shot several brothers, paralyzed one. And in this space, Malcolm X really has to balance the religious aspect of it and the dignity aspect of it. The religious aspect of it and the dignity aspect of it. And the interesting part was, if you look in the audience is not all Muslim. All right, let me take you there.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking it. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
So it's that point, brothers and sisters, we talked about the intelligence. I want to say this, and I want to make sure it's very, very clear. The difference between the Nation of Islam and the Civil Rights Movement back in the day, and let's be very clear, Elijah Muhammad and Martin Luther King and the SCLC was the Nation of Islam was very clear and dedicated to telling you who oppressed them. It wasn't enough that you did something to me. I connected the action to the person. Let me say that again. I connected the action to the person. If you talk about the civil rights movement, they talk about Jim Crow and things, but they never really outright said these are the crimes of the oppressor. You're doing X, Y, and Z. One of the most beautiful things of this clip that I just showed you, it's Malcolm X said something that's stuck with me for a long time. When he talked about race, brothers and sisters, he talked about intelligence. He talked about intelligence. He didn't talk about emotion. He didn't talk about morality. He didn't talk about ethics. He talked about intelligence. And race in America today, there are two things that are given to you: the emotional aspect of it and the intelligence aspect of it. Emotional and intelligence. Most of us just get the emotional aspect of it, and we don't really get to see the intelligence aspect of race. Not only how race affects African Americans, but Latinos, Native Americans, Muslims, Jews. I'm talking minority groups across the way. We're so tied into the fact that we actually believe, brothers and sisters, that there's a dominant majority that rules over. There's no dominant majority in the United States. It's a dominant minority. Hear what I'm saying? A dominant minority. And when I say dominant minority, it means that there are a small group of people who yield incredible power. But in yielding that incredible power, it wasn't given to them. It wasn't given to them. They strategized, they schemed to make sure power stayed with them. You can say things about redlining, you can talk about the census, those are things that we could see. But there was so much damage and so much effort going into the fact. Intelligence, we're talking intelligence. Just like Malcolm X said, the people in power knew at some point in time that there would have to be a compromise on power. So what they did was they figured out what they can live without, what I can live without, what I can give as a compromise that won't hurt me. And in that space, it's not a compromise, it's a lie. And we buy it over and over and over again. Let me give a shout out. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, JT. What's going on? But I want to talk about race in America. And I want everybody to separate race in America from race in your life. Race in America from race in your life. Race in America has been ongoing. It's such a cold thing that race in America, yes, it affects minorities, but the game is so cold, it affects people who are not underrepresented. It affects people who are not oppressed in the way that we're oppressed. But it creates these paradigms where people suffer almost this unspiritual mental illness, this mental dis-ease when they see people who are suffering. That's an interesting thing. When I look at you, I hate you because you remind me of the hate that's in me. You remind me of the fact that I've done something. I've sold a bit of my soul to have this quote unquote privilege. Anyone here ever hang out? Like I don't drink, I don't do dope. But I remember when I first became Muslim and I hung out with my friends who they did smoke, they did do dope, they did do drugs, they did crime. And it was interesting because in that environment, I was not seen as someone they wanted to hang out with because it appeared to them, because I didn't do exactly what they did, that my compass, my moral compass was so much upright, and it really wasn't. I just had clarity that might have brought me closer to an upright position. In America, people don't want that clarity. So if you're Black, so if you're Latino, or you're Muslim, or a bunch of other minority groups, people who look to do you harm, when they physically see you, have what I like to say, psychosomatic responses. The eyes don't work, they don't hear, the heart doesn't pound. They don't have feeling when they look at you. That's race in America. Race in your life, though, brothers and sisters, is a totally different phenomenon. Because race in your life means that there's a genealogical component to it. When I say that, it means that it's in your family. We grow up understanding race. Now, everyone here on the show knows exactly what I'm talking about. You grow up understanding race, and you grow up with models. You can have extremely strong people fighting against race, but in your purview as a child or as a young adult, if you don't see them somehow win, in your mind, psychologically, you say that race still exists. And the cold part about it is the intelligence of it. We talk about race as unmoral, but there's a certain underlying intelligence about it that we don't really tie into. You know, I speak about race and diversity a lot. And I said one of the things about being a minority in the United States, particularly African American, was that you grow up coming out of the womb that understanding that someone wants to harm you, that given an opportunity, given a chance, someone will harm you. And it doesn't have to be a cross on your front lawn or somebody calling you the N word. It's so much more vast than that. The laws, not the laws that affected you, but the laws that affected the generations before you. And in those laws, you have to engage a process that's faulty, that's wrong, hoping, hoping from the outside that somehow you're going to get in and change the process just a little bit. That's race in your life. Race in your life is understanding that, and this is a good way to put it. Look at it like this. There's two types of people when you talk about race in America. There's those who oppress and those who are oppressed. There are those who force a narrative and those who have the narrative forced on them. The interesting part is if you're part of the people who are oppressed, if you're part of the people who have narratives forced on you, then you have a generation of people who have lived under duress and attack. And the generation that lives under duress and attack, they pass on the DNA, the scars of being under duress and attack. It doesn't go away. But check this part out. The people who do the oppressing, who do the attacking, in a generation, they go away. And the cool part of it is they may produce another generation who do the same thing, or worse, they produce a generation that think that it's normal, that somehow think that this meritocracy model means that my people worked for this and your people didn't. That the next generation that goes along doesn't have to worry about what happened to the generation that I just talked about that was oppressed, the generation I talked about that was attacked. You see, we have these weird codes whereby, we equate civility with someone not doing something as much. Not so much stopping, but as much. So in the United States, you say there's racism, but there's not as much racism as there used to be. And then at some point in time, we get, of course, we get these spaces whereby people want to marginalize what happened, not to me, but for the people before me. Hey, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Khalil. Yes, there are those oppressed and those who are oppressed. Great breakdown. Thank you, brother. But here's the intelligence part. People who do the oppressing, have they have a particular type of imagination. I'm not saying it's denial. I'm saying it's the space and the credibility to create normalcy with the oppression. Which means the oppression I'm talking about, I said that race in America and race in your life. Race in America is you can't join the army. Race in your life is the school down the street that has a bunch of minority children that have books, doesn't have computers, doesn't have qualified teachers. The building is falling down and it's crime ridden. the children get the worst of the worst. That's race in your life. My good friend said something, and I'm gonna reiterate it. I did an interview. Maybe I'll play it on here. Sultan, I'm gonna send you the interview I did with Ubaydullah Evans. But he said something about this subject, but he put it around poverty. Put it around poverty. He said poverty is the thing that puts you in a certain class, if you will. And he said the thing is, it's generational. It doesn't just hop and skip. He said if your parents didn't go to college, right? He said if your parents didn't go to college, and it's no fault of the parents, he said there's a very high chance that you may not go to college. He said if you had parents who were poor, or impoverished, or uneducated, he said there's a very good chance that you might be poor, uneducated, or impoverished. Now, I'm speaking as a teacher. And when I say this, I mean no disrespect. But a lot of my kids came to school, particularly when I taught in Milwaukee and in Long Beach, they were poor. They didn't have a lot. And when you would go do home visits to the parents didn't have a lot. Now, I'm saying that because, of course, you want to uplift the children and the families, absolutely. But it speaks to that fact. It speaks to that fact. When you talk about wealth in America, brothers and sisters, think about this. Wealthy people usually hang out with wealthy people. Poor people usually hang out with poor people. There's no mechanism to bring the two together. There's no mechanism for them to mix and share ideas. You see, my grandfather told me, he said, just because you might be poor don't mean you're stupid. He said, just because you're wealthy don't mean you're smart. And so as you begin to look at this, brothers and sisters, I talk about race in America because we're not having this. It's not about the rich and the poor. If you learn anything from this election in the last 4 years, it was the intelligence of evil people, greedy people that made sure that groups of people did not talk to one another. We did not interact with one another. So what was said over here stayed over here, and what was said over here stayed over here. There was no exchange of ideas or common sense, compassion, mercy, all of these things, education, information, no exchange of that at all. And why am I saying this? Because this is the end of 2020, and I have a deep, deep, dark fear that in 2021, it's going to get worse. In 2021, it's going to get worse. You know why? Because other than the model I just told you, the wealthy stayed with the wealthy, the racists stayed with the racists, the minorities, unfortunately, stayed with the minorities, the oppressed stayed with the oppressed, the oppressors stayed with the oppressors. You know, now that Trump is on his way out, he'll be gone, whatever, January the 20th, which is I got to wait a long time, just like you. The evil of Trump was this, that as he was the president, for those people I told you, the wealthy, the oppressors, the wannabe oppressors, he held sway over them. He had a nasty, dirty, greedy, selfish control over those people. But now that he's leaving the office of the presidency of the United States, they have no zookeeper. They have no gatekeeper. And so that aspect, we laugh, brothers and sisters, of the Karens. Better worry about the Kens and the Carries and the Kellys. Why am I saying this? Because we've been sleeping a long time. I'm not a genius. I admit to being sleepy at times too. But we've been sleeping a long time. And Malcolm X said it the best about that house. About that house. That house should not be standing there. That house it has no rational purpose. It has no good in it. race in America is sad, or racism in America, if you will. It has no purpose. Can you tell me what the purpose of race is? That we have to fight this conundrum over and over and over and over again. There's no good that comes out of race. To identify a certain way means that I can't identify the way I want to. So if he says I'm black, I have to say I'm black too, because the majority of people say they're black. And if I said, you know what, I'm Mexican, people are gonna go, no, you're not. I say I'm Polish, they're gonna know, no, you're not. You know why? Because people are conditioned to think a certain way. And that condition, make sure that I'm gonna stay with my group. Now, I love my black folks, you know that. I love my Latino, I love everybody. But what I don't love is the deception that's been put out here for the last 4 years. And it's from all sides. Let's just call it what it is. GOP, never Trump, or Trump supporters, da da da. I mean, walking this little weird line, brothers and sisters. You know, we don't say what we mean. We don't mean what we say. We become these political and spiritual punks, sissies, fairies, because you know what? We let the situation get to a point, and then we get brave. Can't get brave. You want to fight a fight where everybody can help, you know, you got to fight a fight sometimes where you're by yourself, you're in the alley, you're going to swing. And that's the hardest you're going to fight. You know why? Because you realize that there's no cavalry coming. And in that, brothers and sisters, we need to keep that space. We keep that energy. You know why? Swing like you know there's no cavalry coming. Swing like nobody's got your back. Because in doing that, somebody might say, I want to have that person's back. I want to have her back. I want to have that sister's back. And think about this, brothers and sisters. Generations upon generations upon generations have left this earth being oppressed. And at the same time, generation upon generation upon generation of people have left this earth still oppressing. We're not going to meet in the middle. Be prepared to fight. It's a shout out show. Potluck Sunday with your boy Preach. I want everybody to have a great week. Inshallah, I hope I said something meaningful. If I did not, that's my fault. If I did, all praise due to Allah. Have a great week, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's the ShOUT show.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your ShOUT show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next ShOUT show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again